Hey guys, what's up? So I wanted to talk quickly about the whole Russian team being banned from the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. Obviously, a lot of people have a lot to say about it. I've been looking online for the past couple of days that this came out, and a lot of people are on two different camps. One camp believes this is justice. You can't steal, you can't cheat, you can't do something that's state run and get away with it if you get caught. And the other side feels like, oh, this is just political, this is BS, this is just, somehow America's a part of this, and this is the IOC just caving. And so I wanted to sort of dissect this topic and kind of get into it a little bit more in depthly with some facts, because I feel like a lot of people are basing their feelings on their emotions and not so much on what actually is going on. So before I get into it, I want to just state I am a huge Olympics fan. I love the Olympics. I've been watching the Olympics since 1996 in Atlanta, Georgia. Those are my first Olympics that I ever watched, and I was hooked ever since. And I've watched every single Olympics, both summer and winter, ever since, and I've never missed an hour of Olympic coverage. And so I know how significant Russia is to the Olympics and to the Olympic program. I mean, Putin, I believe, paid $52 billion just to get Sochi in 2014. So that was a lot of money in the IOC's pockets. And for the most part, Putin and the Russian Federation has always had a really good relationship with the IOC. So the IOC deciding to ban Russia as a whole is pretty epic, and something that I don't even think Putin himself thought was going to happen. So what are my thoughts and feelings about this overall? I feel like you have to watch the documentary Icarus on Netflix. In order to truly understand or to dissect this topic, you have to watch the documentary. Whether you agree or disagree with the banning, I think it's important to watch it because it gives you the perspective from the other side. So if you don't agree with the banning, watch the documentary and then see if that changes your opinion. If it doesn't change your opinion, then it doesn't change it. And great, you still have your opinion and you can base it and counter the Netflix documentary. But the reason why I think it's so important is because in order to really dissect the topic, you need to understand the full perspective. And there's way too much information in this documentary to overlook it or to not watch it and then have an opinion that's informed. Your opinion, unfortunately, will not be informed if you don't watch this documentary, because this documentary has everything to do with why what's going on currently is happening. This documentary was like the domino effect. It came out and it caused so many people to investigate what was really going on with Russia and the Sochi Olympics and how deep this really was. And it caused an investigation to happen, and it's where we are today. Grigory Rodchenkov was a head scientist for Russia at the time. He was the sports scientist, and he was the one that was literally running the entire show. He was the one that was doping the athletes. He was the one that was creating the chemicals in the lab to create, the EPO and the substance that the Russian athletes were using. And he goes into grave detail in this documentary about the entire scandal, the entire scheme, the entire idea, where it came from, how it started, what they did, the blueprints, how they broke into the labs, they drilled a hole, they were switching out urine samples. I mean, he goes into the details, and he's very credible. You can't just say, oh, who cares what he has to say, he's just some scientist. No, he was the head scientist, and is on file. He was a head scientist working for the Russian Federation in sports. So he is a very credible witness to what's going on. He's a whistleblower. And I think because of that credibility, it's hard for me not to believe the documentary and not to believe what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, because it will be too easy to just dismiss it without looking at the facts. But when you see the facts, it's almost impossible to not pay attention to it. So I truly believe that the Russian Federation was doping their athletes, especially in Sochi. And I believe that it was something that was state-run. And it was done politically because Putin wanted to, prove that Russia was the best in the world. And what better way to prove that than at the Olympics? The Olympics is political. It is based on sport, but it's also based on which country is the best, which country has bragging rights. The opening ceremonies is very political. And that's not to say that Russia is the only country to ever do state-sponsored doping. I mean, if you believe that China and Beijing didn't do the same thing, you're crazy. The difference is the Chinese didn't get caught. You can't get caught, and Russia got caught with a hand in the cookie jar, and that's why they're facing the consequences. The IOC, I don't believe, wants to ban Russia at all. I mean, if you look at 2016 in Rio, they dropped the ball completely. They were given all this information back in 2014 and 2015, And they chose not to do anything with it. They chose to let the different sports federations decide what they wanted to do with Russia because they wanted their hands clean. They didn't want to actually ban Russia from the Summer Games because they know how profitable the Olympics are, especially with Russia participating in it. It's all a money scheme. And so the IOC decided, let the federations decide for themselves. The track and field federation decided that they were going to ban Russia because there was so much evidence of doping within track and field regarding Russia that they banned them. That was not the IOC. That was the track and field federation, international federation. They made a decision on their own because the IOC wanted nothing to do with it. So that in itself proves that the IOC doesn't really have an agenda in wanting to ban Russia. They actually want Russia involved, which is also why I believe there's a loophole within this banning where they're allowing Russian athletes who can prove they are healthy to still compete under a neutral Olympic flag and under a neutral team where there's no Russian anthem being played. But we're all going to know, based on the last name, that they're probably Russian. It's going to be very clear. So that's sort of a loophole that the IOC has created for the Russian Federation to still be able to compete, even though there is a scandal going on. So I feel like, the argument about the IOC is in the pockets of America or in the pockets of the Western world to be against Russia. I just don't believe that, because if that was the case, the IOC would have jumped at the chance to ban Russia in 2016 in Rio, and they didn't do that. So you can't really get around that point and still have the opinion that the IOC is against Russia. It doesn't make any sense. Also, I don't believe that America is a part of the scheme. America has nothing to do with this. The IOC is an international federation. It's an international panel. So there are a lot more people from Europe and Asia than there are America on that panel, who I'm sure have their own agenda, which isn't going to be American-based. And also, if you look at the politics of it all, why would Trump, who is running the United States right now, why would he want to hurt Russia at the Olympics if the collusion, accusations are true? And we know that Trump does like Russia and he does like Putin. Why would he try to hurt them at the Olympics and try to, discredit them and get rid of them at the Olympics? It makes no sense at all. They're allies pretty much right now. I mean, if Clinton won, it would make more sense. But the fact that she didn't win and Trump won, it doesn't make any sense that he would try to do some scheme to get Russia banned from the Olympics. It just makes no sense. It really doesn't. And if you look at the trail of evidence, it has nothing to do with the United States at all. I mean, the documentarian was an American, but the person who gave all of the facts and all of the whistleblowing was Russian. And the documentary Icarus was actually meant to be something completely different. It was supposed to be about this man's journey as a cyclist, doping and seeing if he can get away with doping, since Lance Armstrong took over 500 tests and got away with it. And so he wanted to see, can I do the same thing? And in that journey, he met Gregory from Russia and had no idea the depths of who this man was until he started to reveal it himself. He told him, hey, there's a documentary in Germany about me. Did you see it? That documentary came out, it blew up everywhere. All of a sudden, the Russians were after him, and he had to flee Russia and go to the United States. And that's when he started revealing so much information about who he really was and his role in the Russian doping scandal. And the documentary took a huge turn, and it became about Gregory as opposed to the actual man that made the documentary. So I just think it's important to get all the facts first before forming a full opinion about this topic. It's very easy to jump into politics and to get into left and right and Democrat, Republican and collusion and to pull in America in this, but this has nothing to do with that. This is completely different. This is state-sponsored doping, which hasn't been done or hasn't been exposed since the 1980s with Germany, East Germany, when they doped all of their athletes. Russia attempted to do the same thing, and the reason why the IOC is hammering down on them right now is because all of the evidence is public, and if they don't do something, it's going to look extremely, extremely bad. So the IOC was forced to do something because of this documentary. That's the only reason why they're actually taking action. I think had this documentary not come out and this information sort of leaked out somewhere, I think Russia would still be involved in the Olympics, and I think that the IOC would have covered it up because they have everything to gain financially from keeping Russia in the games as opposed to banning them as a whole. It becomes more complicated. It hurts the brand of the Olympics, and it also helps the money and the funding that could be going into the Olympics if Russia was still a part of the Olympics. So that's my opinion. You guys can agree, disagree. I just wanted to state that because I feel like a lot of people have been saying a lot about this, and unfortunately, a lot of people have been stating their opinion, but is not really factually based when you really dissect what they're saying, they haven't even watched the documentary. They don't even know who Gregory Rodchenkov is. And I feel like if you don't know those specific facts, which are so crucial to this particular case, then how can you truly argue pro or against this situation? So my final thought is watch the documentary Icarus on Netflix. It is an amazing documentary and it reveals a lot. And after you watch the documentary, then form your full opinion and do your research. Peace.